Well, welcome. Tonight we're going to cover an area that a lot of us have thought about, but none of us that I know have had the experience of publishing a book. So we'll start and talk with a new author, and I have to ask you how a molecular biologist publishes a book, but why don't we start with an introduction?
Yeah, basically I'm a cancer researcher and also molecular geneticist. And when I was busy with the work at a number of universities, medical schools, I didn't have much of time. And after I retired, I have a lot of time at hand. Then I thought, why not I hand at a novel?
So where were you originally from?
I'm originally from India, and I did some writing back in India, mostly short stories and plays, radio plays essentially. And then after coming here, it is always, when you're a newcomer in a new country, it is always a struggle, and you have to work double hard than the local people to establish yourself. And that's what I was busy with, establishing myself, publishing papers and attending meetings, then later on training people, teaching people. And I was busy, very busy indeed. And later on, I got some time at hand, and I thought, one of my dreams to write a novel, because the plot has been incubating within myself for many, many years. But I didn't have the time or the maturity of language to write it. Then at one moment I thought, well, I can try at my language. I was very, very, language is very important for me, this style. And I said, I have to have my own style. Until then, I'm not going to write.
But in India, wasn't it mostly English?
A large number of people speak English. Otherwise, local people and people who are not educated, Hindi. Hindi right. And about 14 official.
Well, I never could figure out how many languages there were in India.
It is thousands.
But I deal mainly with chemists, biochemists in the pharmaceutical life science area. So, it's mainly bachelor's level or PhDs, and I think everybody I've ever met spoke English.
Yeah. People who are coming here are usually highly educated. And so they already know how to deal with people and in English. That's a plus for people coming from India.
Well, it's a plus for us.
Yeah.
Because we can get some very highly educated people from India.
Right.
And you're not dealing with some of the countries you deal with, the language barrier can be very high.
Not from India. Yeah.
So why come here from India?
Yeah, the reason I came mainly because the molecular genetics was taking off here. And I was very attracted this new technology. I wanted to master it. And first I started working with the man who discovered the recombinant DNA, the cloning. But he couldn't accommodate me at that time. So I tried with the different people, but I got very good training. And that was the main reason I came to the United States.
Where were you doing your research?
Research? Molecular genetics as applied to cancer.
But where? What university or?
Well, here?
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly Ohio State University Medical School. And later on, most of my time at Yale University Medical School. And that's where I retired from. And I had a wonderful time in Yale University Medical School.
So you went from Ohio?
To New Haven.
New Haven.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in Massachusetts?
My wife,
Huh?
also a scientist. Her branch of science is radiation oncology, and she did a lot of work in experimental radiation oncology. And she also worked with me at Yale.
At Yale?
Yeah. And then I retired. Before I retired, she got a job at National Institute of Health.
In Maryland?
Yeah, Bethesda. And she worked at the National Cancer Institute. And by that time, I retired because of health problems. I couldn't continue. And so I followed her. We lived in Maryland.
Well, that whole 20814 zip code, Bethesda,
yeah,
is a beautiful area.
beautiful area.
I lived up 355 all the way up Rockville.
Right.
So if you make a left out of NIH and just keep going straight,
Yeah,
eventually you end up in Gaithersburg.
yeah, right.
And that's where we lived for a number of
really?
years.
Oh, a number of years.
Yeah, I used to work for a company here in Milford called Waters. So we spent a lot of time at NIH, the NCI, the National Mental Health, all of the different
Oh,
institutes, NEI for the eyes.
Yeah,
Love the area.
beautiful place. And one of the best places to work for.
Really?
Yeah, wonderful. Because there is no dearth for money for them.
Yeah.
It is all coming from the government. People like me, when I was working at Yale, and we had to get the funding from them.
Oh, then you got to go apply for NIH grants.
Keep on writing grants. Come home at night and start writing grants. And you send in several grant applications, only a small percentage will get funded.
The ones I always loved at NIH is when they said you're approved but not funded.
But not funded. It's a very familiar.
I just remember when, different professors I knew, they said, it's kind of bittersweet. It's nice to know they think enough of it, but it doesn't help me pay for my postdocs.
Right. Consolation is not enough.
So the book, how does somebody go about getting a book published? I would think there's so many people that think they can write.
It is a really terrible task. No agents will touch your book if you are the first time writer. And big companies like Simon & Schuster, they won't touch you.
No?
No, because you're a first time author. And I went with this Adelaide Books. It's a small book publishing company. They took a liking for my writing. I sent them one chapter. They said, send the full manuscript right away. I sent it to them. Within 2 weeks, I got the reply saying that
you have a book or a manuscript at that point.
Manuscript.
You have a manuscript, and you decide you'd like to have it published.
Yes.
Okay, so what do I knock on the door of Adelaide and say, hello, my name is Thomas. I'd like you to publish my book. I mean, how do you get them to open the door for you?
Usually, you would send a letter saying that I have a book a manuscript ready for publication. That will usually encourage them to read your manuscript.
Oh, so they will read it, even unsolicited?
Some of them.
Oh.
Some of them. For example, Adelaide, they were willing to read my book. They said, send me a chapter. I sent the selected chapter, and they approved it in 2 weeks.
That seems fast.
Yeah, they said, we liked it, we liked the language. They said, we like the poetry in it. the publisher and the chief editor is a poet himself.
Uh-huh.
And the poetry in prose. My father was an English teacher. He used to tell me, in your prose, there should be poetry. Then you are a writer.
See, my family goes the other way. They can write, but they look at me and say, you're a chemist. You know nothing about writing.
Yeah.
You know, my wife's a biochemist,
Oh, okay.
and my daughter did the middle road because she saw her. My wife went into public relations.
Uh-huh.
And so when my daughter was studying at college, she decided to take chemistry, biology, you know, technical courses, so that she would have an edge on other people
Yeah, yeah.
that are doing PR. So I remember she had a paper due once, and my wife was running late. And I said, "Do you want me to proof it for you?" And she said, "Dad, you have the literature skills of a dead bovine. I think I'll wait for Mom."
Yeah.
So it was always interesting to see the combination of people who can write properly
Yeah.
and know the science.
Right, right. You know, I used to write scientific papers, and there you need precision and accuracy. But here, no precision.
Right.
It's not what you're asking.
Well, I mean, you're writing to people like me that we're used to reading PubMed, you know, or something on that line.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the prose, the beauty is less interesting than the data and,
The
you
data
know,
and the precision.
and the precision of
Yeah, yeah.
the argument and how you present it and
Exactly.
the work you did. I could write papers, but I don't think I could ever write a novel. So you send a letter, they ask for a chapter, and in 2 weeks they say, we're going to publish your book.
No, they said send the whole.
Oh, send the whole
manuscript.
book.
After reading that, their editorial board took about 15 days.
Still seems fast.
Yeah, it was.
They must get an enormous number of books sent to them.
Oh, yeah, thousands.
Thousands.
And a lot of people, they don't even get to the first step. It is rejected right away. And I also suffered rejection when I sent to Simon & Schuster.
Yeah, but you're going for the major leagues there.
Yeah, yeah, it is difficult. It is difficult.
I mean, they must be able to pick.
They go after the name. I don't have a name so far. This might put me
This now you can say I'm a published author,
author. Yeah,
so I'm not first time. And
exactly.
now, do they have estimates? Like I would think a Simon & Schuster has got to say, unless we print X number of books, it's not worth it for us.
The economics of publishing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, they look at it, definitely, if they can make some money. Otherwise, they won't touch it.
But how many books do you have to publish to make
Get
money?
Get a name?
Well, I'm just thinking, if I'm Simon & Schuster, and I say, I like this book, but can it sell, is it 1,000, 10,000, 100,000? How many books do they have to believe it'll sell?
It is a kind of, they try it. They like Obama's book, Mrs. Obama's book. It was sold in millions. Millions. And actually, New York Times made a advertisement, her book and my book side by side.
Really?
Yeah, New York Times.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, but she sells thousands, I sell tens.
So an average book at like Adelaide, how many would be sold? Is it 10,000, 1,000?
I won't know.
Yeah.
I won't know.
Because that always fascinated me when you hear, you know, the political people getting $5 million up front.
Yeah,
Advance. They've got to expect to sell a lot of books
Yeah,
if they're
yeah.
handing out $5
It
million.
is a name. It is a name. Name sells. You
I
know.
remember I used to read a lot of Tom Clancy.
Yeah, yeah.
And then as the years went on, it was, I guess, written by somebody, and he would look at it or edit it and put his name on the cover.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I tried to send the book to various well-known authors. You can't even find their address. It's all secret. I couldn't find.
I guess they don't want to be bothered by.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so it is difficult.
But you hit it. You got in, and
Yeah. I
now
think it
you
is-
have a book behind you and a name.
Yeah, very nicely brought out. There, you saw my book, right?
I read your book.
Yeah. It is very nicely brought out.
I love the cover.
Yeah.
We'll show the cover later, but
Yeah.
you know, it just made you feel like you're at home.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that cover should be in the video.
Yes,
The book.
we'll put the cover of the book in the video. So now, how do you start? Is this personal experience, or you're going to write a book?
Hmm. Yeah, in order to write a novel, you have to have a plot. You have to have a plot in your mind. And as I said, this has been in my mind incubating, and until a final opportunity comes to write. And that when I started writing, I wrote the first chapter, then it followed. I used to write late in the evening, and it developed.
But now, Manor, is that how you say it?
Manur, yes.
Manor. How did you pick Manor?
Well, Manur is a village, an imaginary village. It is shaped after a village, a true village, in a state called Kerala. Kerala is at the southernmost tip of India, and that state, it is a sliver of a state. On one side, it is Arabian Sea, and on the eastern side, it is a mountainous range, and in between lies this small, beautiful state. It is called Kerala. It essentially means, in the local language, the land of coconut trees, because it is full of coconut trees and tropical vegetation, very rich, and it is a tourist attraction. People who visit India, they always go to Kerala because the natural beauty, and people are highly educated.
But that's way down the southern tip.
Southern tip, yes.
That's a long way to go as a tourist, isn't it?
It is. It is part of the south. People who take the south tourist route, they always ended up in Kerala. And the people are highly educated, and you can see laborers poring over not one newspaper, couple of newspapers before they go to the field or the factories in a local tea shop. You know, just going
Like
to,
the one on Main Street.
yeah, exactly. You know, they are very politically knowledgeable, and they take active interest because they are education. Even the laborers, they have gone to the high school
Really?
graduate, or sometimes even college, factory workers. So they are highly educated people.
Sounds like a beautiful area.
It is, and that's where I grew up.
So now, well, before we get into the book itself, to promote the book, how do you let people know, I have a very interesting book that you should want to read?
I'm just doing one right now.
So you go around, I mean, do you go to bookstores? Or?
Yeah, bookstore, libraries. I went to Upton Library, and next week I have a reading at Grafton Library, and afterwards I have a discussion group also at Grafton Library, and people get to know word of mouth. You know, I'm not well-known author. This is the only
Yeah.
way. New York Times, if I get a review in New York Times, that will be hitting the jackpot,
Oh, okay.
which is very, very tough. Very tough.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, with all the choices they have, and, you know, they publish every day, but I'll look at the Times as I read it now to see if I can find the streetlight showing up.
Yeah, right. It is difficult.
How did you come up with the title?
It is a kind of intriguing title, isn't it?
Yes.
It is mainly the streetlights is a character in the novel because you can see it being repeated, streetlight, and the village is as equally important or more important. And we, myself and my wife, we discussed what should be the title. She insisted the streetlight should be there, the village should be there in the title. So I came with a, slightly intriguing to make people curious about the book. You know, when you read the title, a village under the streetlight, usually you can understand a streetlight in a village, not under a village under the streetlight. I purposely made it a little intriguing. That is the title.
Yeah, I found it fascinating because we're talking about a village in southern India. And so many of the passages I could relate right back to my little village here in Milford.
That is wonderful.
You know, and I sat there and, you look and you say, on Wednesday, or was it Tuesday that
Meat is available.
the meat is available, and somebody said Wednesday, and it was like the whole town turned upside down.
Right, exactly. A simple point, but how I developed a conflict there. Like in any other form of literature, like plays, movie scripts. Conflict is the food of these novels, and there should be conflict. So I started with a situation where there is an active conflict, where the two main characters in the village are involved, and with them, even the people are involved.
It was amazing when, like you say, what conflict came out of having meat or having beef on Tuesday instead of Wednesday.
Yeah.
Something that you would think is
Usually
trivial.
Sundays,
Right.
not on Wednesdays.
So
And
you had to wait a week, so you had to get your beef,
yeah,
have it wrapped up, and that was it till next Sunday.
right, exactly. Otherwise, fish and vegetables.
Fish and vet. And then all of a sudden, somebody comes in with the strange concept
Yeah,
that the middle of the week we should have beef.
a new convenience.
But it was different.
Yes,
It was something that the village didn't seem to understand. Well, why would you change it?
yeah. Mostly the opposition was from his rival.
Right. Now he had competition.
Right, rival and his family.
But now he wasn't from Manor.
Yes. No, originally he was Manu, as you read the novel already.
But he had moved out.
Yeah, he moved out and came back.
But somehow it seemed like, okay, well, I don't know if I'm going to accept you now. Because you, originally, your family was from Manor, but you left us.
Yeah.
So why should I accept you coming back? And now you're changing things.
Yeah, there was a lot of opposition. And he left, not in any commendable way. He left stealthily.
Right.
And he came back stealthily.
But his cover didn't last very long when he opened up
Yeah.
the store. Now, as I start thinking, Milford is a small village. You know, we've got 28,000, not quite 30,000 people. And it's amazing to me that, you know, in this day and age, they still try and figure out who's a Milfordian. Now
Really? They
oh
do?
God, yeah.
Yeah?
We have a strict definition. You have to be third generation Milford and live within 2 miles of your mother. Then they tell you that you are a Milfordian. How
about the people coming from across the sea?
You know, I don't think there's much differentiation. You know, when we first moved back, there was an election for school committee. And one of the people running, I said, oh, I know him. He was my teacher when I was at Milford High. He won. And then the interview afterwards, they were asking him, well, aren't you surprised you won your first election being a foreigner? And my wife looked at me and says,
A foreigner?
It was strange, because she looked at me and said, but I thought he was your teacher. I said, yeah, but he was from Framingham. That's 10 miles away. So I don't think it really mattered whether he came from Framingham or he came from India or China or South America. It's Milford.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of the same, you know, the family ties and everything that you described of the families in Manor that we see here even in our own little town.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of the issues, I guess I have to ask you how common they still are, because at one point, I'm getting married, but somebody steals my money. So now I can't get married anymore. Is that still occurring?
It is what is called arranged marriages.
Yes. That was the second question.
Yeah. Arranged marriages are still very common.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
If I tried arranging my daughter's marriage, I think she'd hurt me.
Yeah, certainly. But in India, it's still very accepted, honorable thing to do. Parents arrange your marriage. Usually girls accept. But things are changing, especially in a place like Kerala, where people are highly educated, well-versed in literature, and they are they are not following the arranged marriages. So people they fall in love, get married, sometimes even intercaste marriages, different caste, different religion. That has become almost common now. It was not the case before.
I was going to say, if I remember my history, it was rare that you cross castes.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, question, I send my daughter, my son, to the university because you value getting a strong education.
Education, yeah.
How do you then tell them, excuse me, I'm still going to decide who you marry? I don't understand.
It is the tradition and the custom. These kids see and grow with
And they keep to the tradition.
Even though it is fast changing.
Okay, it is, because I'm just amazed. You know, as I travel around, I remember being in the Gulf, being in the Kingdom, and saying, how is it that somebody sends their daughters to Europe, to the US, they become highly educated, they have PhDs, then they come back home and they can't do anything but teach at women's schools.
Yeah.
You know, they can't drive. I mean, that's just changed recently.
Right.
You know, and I sat there and I said, you know, I don't know if I have the intestinal fortitude to sit there and say, I'm going to lose my daughter, because you'd want the best for her. So if she can go abroad and use her skills and her talents to be a professor,
Yeah.
to be, you know, an executive at a company, well, I'm really excited about that. But then if she can't come home because she'll get bored, I can't imagine, you know, that I would be happy with that.
Yeah.
But you're saying it's changing.
It is changing very fast.
You have to help me with Anthraeus.
Anthraeus.
Describe him.
Anthraeus was a spoiled child,
Okay.
and right from his childhood, and he had a very easy life. Never did anything, profitable or as a profession, or he had a lazy life because he belonged to a very rich family, and he demanded money for his outings and in the evenings, and it was provided. And since you have read the book, he had some moral failings. Then he got spoiled. And when the father, it is very common, the father is very strict and disciplinarians usually. When he put his foot down, demanding better behavior from him, he didn't like it. As you know, what happened to him. Yeah.
Now, if you were to look at the conflict in the book, who would be the person that you would say caused the most conflict?
I would say Andreas.
Okay. Because that was the feeling I got, is wherever he went,
Yeah, he created problems.
it was just trouble. It just seemed to circle him.
Yeah.
When you start thinking about the transition that the country was going through, we've never felt it. The British were here.
Yeah.
At some point, we decided to give them back their island and send them home.
Yeah.
But India seemed to go through a much harder transition. I always wondered, did the British colonize, was the Raj a strategic move that India let the British come and then colonize Britain? Or
As vice versa.
as vice, you sit there and say, wait a minute, when I go to London, thank God, because if I had to eat British food, I'd starve out of boredom. I mean, the British do have an incredible technology.
Yeah.
They can cook the taste out of anything they make.
Right.
But the Indian food was just spicy and incredible.
They are very, very popular in England. Indian
But
food.
now the transition, since you came from there, describe it to me. What did people go through?
Yeah, I selected that time of the novel. It is about 70 years ago. So about 3 years after India gained independence, I chose that time because that was the time, the transition taking place from a colonial rule to democratic rule. That transition, and also at that time, the customs and traditions of India are still intact. And I thought this will be a good time to write a novel about, mainly because of the time of the India's history, and also the customs and traditions are still intact. Now it is slowly being invaded by Western civilization. Before that happened, I want to take it. That is the time I took the reason.
But yet, when in the middle of the book, you talk about communism being introduced to the village.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the exact number, but they had a big rally for the communists and
Right,
6 people
right.
showed up.
Right.
I mean,
The reason is communism and the Marxist ideology didn't have any coinage in Indian common people, because their everyday life is start with religion, end with religion. I'm talking about the Hindu majority, and Christians are only about 3%, 4%.
Right.
And so when they know these are the people who say there is no God, there is no value for God, there is no value for religion, it didn't appeal to them.
well, I can't imagine when Marx comes out and says religion is the opium of the masses,
yeah,
and you turn around and say, I mean, to this day, religion, you know, when we look up north between Pakistan and India, you know, the Muslims and the Hindi, doesn't seem like people take it very lightly.
no, religion is very, very important.
You know, you sit there and say, there are certain countries in the world that really do live their religion.
Yeah.
You know?
Especially religion in a politician's hands, that's a really powerful weapon. And people use it, not as a religion, it is as a weapon. That is unfortunate. And that's what happened in India and also in Pakistan. Religion for political means.
In Bangladesh,
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen last few years what the Muslim minority are facing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it's, I guess it's strange to me as an American, because we don't have one religion. You know, U.S. is the biggest thieves of people. I mean, think about how many Indian educators we've stolen. You know, that they come here, they go to our universities, and then we keep like 25, 30% of them.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the things that helps us as a country.
Yeah, look at Einstein.
But it's not just the Einstein. I think of not the one or two super, but how many people
Yeah, technical hands.
that you get that are at the PhD, they're good, solid PhDs, you know, that really do advance our science. And I'm prejudiced because I'm in the scientific side.
Yeah,
You know, but you start looking at all the countries, the people they send here are not the poorest workers.
yeah, they are educated. And
They're educated, they're typically well off, because otherwise, I know a lot of schools, like where my daughter went in Worcester, they charge 30% to foreign students, premium, over a tuition that was already ridiculous.
Oh my.
You know, and then probably a fourth of those kids stayed. That would be the hardest decision for me to make.
Yeah.
You know, to send my children abroad, knowing that
decide.
1 in 4, they won't come home.
Yeah.
Do you have family here, or?
Yeah, I have my son. I have one son. He lives in Worcester, not Worcester, there, Westboro,
Close enough.
closer, Westboro. And he has got 3 little girls.
Well, that'll dictate where you and your wife end up. I always laughed and I said, you know, I was fortunate because both my girls went to Worcester.
Uh-huh.
And when it came time, my daughter lives 1.5 miles from me. My wife always talked about going back to Maryland.
Oh,
Because we lived 3 days a week in Gaithersburg, northern Potomac, and then 4 days a week on a boat in just above Annapolis, Pasadena.
uh-huh.
And she was always talking about moving back. Now that I have a grandson and a granddaughter 1.5 miles away,
Okay. No
there's not even a question.
No way.
Okay, you got to help me with Hyder. I can understand, but Hedakari?
Adhikari.
Adhikari.
Adhikari means, in the local language, the village officer.
Now, they seemed to be interesting in their.
In their own story.
Help me understand them. Because they seemed like, okay, that one would be a Republican, one would be a Democrat. They seem totally contrasting in their beliefs.
Yes, indeed. And Adhikari's, you know, his family, how he started, his great-grandparents, how they were untouchable. And then I tried to put some humor in there. The collector, the British official, come to the village, and he hasn't seen the Ayyappan. Ayyappan is the grandfather of Adhikari, and he hasn't seen a white man before. he said, I think I have written there, he compared the color of the white skin as white as the tusk of
Of
an
an elephant.
Then he, in total amazement and total admiration for such a man, tall, he hasn't seen such a man as tall as he prostrated himself in front of the white man.
But that was funny because when he said as white as the ivory on an elephant,
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I don't look that white. But I guess it
Well,
depends.
it is a question of the beholder's eye.
Okay. Because I'm sitting there saying, what did he mean?
And so on the spot, he was given this privilege of being an adhikari, a village officer. That is the beginning of the whole family.
So now, I found it interesting because the writing style seemed to be that you started and ended a story, or it's not just a chapter that, okay, it's Monday, end of chapter 1, we start on Tuesday. How did you decide that kind of style? Because it seems like almost mini-series.
Exactly. The reason is I have basically adopted the technique of postmodern style. The postmodern style, one of the technique is small snippets of stories and then strung together with a very thin thread. That is one of the postmodern techniques. And I have adopted that. That thin thread is Muthoma.
Okay.
He is everywhere.
Everywhere.
In all the chapters. But he is very subdued, not his presence felt, and never tried to make his presence and his adventures. It's all once it is done, he goes into the background. And that is a postmodern style of writing. And in the whole novel, my emphasis was the prose. Each and every sentence measured, balanced, and it should ring. Every sentence should ring.
Well, I kept going back saying, is this the same guy? Am I missing up the name? Because, like you said, he seemed to be omnipresent everywhere. At some point,
he comes out.
It's like, where'd you come from? I thought you were gone. Nope, he's back.
Yeah. Nick of time, he's there.
Now, that was different from, let me see if I can remember, Marco,
Yeah.
Simon, and Lily?
Lilu.
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 They seem to have gone through a pretty big change.
Yes.
Would you describe it for us?
One of the Marco and Lilu had a family life, and he was a butcher himself, cattle merchant as too, and he used to go to the cattle market. Then he got into friendship initially with this Anisu, and he was attracted by her, and she, more than that, she was attracted to him. And he ended up being with her slowly, but and gradually abandoned Lilu. And Lilu, for her own consolation, went to Simon, and their friendship developed. And you know the story.
Yes. But you know, it seemed like there were side stories. Just when I thought I knew what was, it's like, wait a minute. I mean, one of the things I remember, I can't think of her name, the woman that was taking care of the house and doing the breakfasts, and she's running to the house and she falls in a ditch.
Yes.
Right? And how she had to crawl out of the ditch, and it just seemed like, wow, this is a story of what the women in the village were going through.
Yes.
Did I miss it, or?
No. No. Actually, she's from a rich family, and she used to go and visit her aunt through this ditch road, which is flooded most of the time, and she fall into the ditch. And their love story, and how we ended up the love story, because the Chaco, the man whom she is in love with, he went to the north to become a priest, and ended up marrying another woman and came back.
I was going to say, that one got me stumped, because the love of his life is here. Now, you move because you're going to dedicate yourself to religion. And then somewhere in the middle you say, no.
Yeah, that's what happened. And then he came back and made harmony to lunacy.
Yeah. It just stunned me, because I was like, wait a minute. When he decided, I'm not going to do this anymore, why wouldn't he have just gone back to the love of his life?
Yeah, that is human weaknesses. At one time you want to dedicate yourself to religion, and then when the proper situation comes, you change your mind.
Now, there was another character that I never understood how he survived. The marriage killer. Was that what it? Matuthi. If he interfered with my daughter or my son's wedding,
he's finished.
I don't know that I would be very forgiving, right? And then if he did my neighbors, and it seemed like any marriage, it wasn't that he didn't like me, if I read this right. He just didn't like anybody getting married.
No, he just take some strange pleasure in breaking up marriages.
And the village didn't take him out and take care of him?
Him out? No. They knew what is he up to. I describe him, when he goes in his usual...
But he went around and talked trash about the bride and her moral character, and it's like, there's certain things. I mean, Thomas, you can be mad at me, and you can call me all sorts of names. And you can say that my parents were never married, therefore I have an affectionate name. Okay, I can deal. But you start saying bad things about my daughter to break up her marriage. I remember...
And he does it secretly, but it is an open secret.
I was going to say, the first time I saw it, okay, but it seemed like everybody knew what he did.
What he does.
I remember when Portugal went through its little mini revolution, and they overturned the secret police. And I said to my father, I said, how come they found...
You're from Portugal?
I'm from Portugal.
Oh, really?
My parents, I was born here in Milford. I was the first one. But I asked my father, I said, how is it that these people who were informing... I mean, our village in Portugal was 300 people. So nothing was a secret.
Yeah, everybody knew.
Everybody knew. And then you find out that because Thomas informed on my son disappeared. I said, how come these people never got found? And my father was very simple. He said, we don't need anybody to come and dole out justice. We found them. They're up in the mountains somewhere. Nobody will ever find them. So, I sat there and I said, how could the village let this guy mess around and screw up marriages? Because if you're going to touch anything of mine, it's my daughter.
A family like this Warid's family, they're so poor themselves. What can they do? They're helpless. The mother is collecting the money for her daughter's marriage. And
what was the deal there? She had it all tucked away. I mean, it didn't seem like a fortune.
Yeah, it is.
But you know, when you have virtually nothing, that little bit seemed like the world.
Yeah,
So is it Mary?
Mary.
Mary. And then all of a sudden it's gone. How important is that whole dowry idea still?
It is by law.
By law.
By law, it is forbidden.
Oh, okay.
You can't. But still, people under the table, they do it.
But now, today's day and age, your daughter falls in love with my son. Okay, my son falls in love with your daughter. She doesn't have a dowry. Can I really stop them from getting married?
If the both of them agree, if the son agree, I can marry without dowry.
Okay.
Then go ahead.
Because yeah, it seemed like
it
Mary's
is
wedding.
illegal to offer dowry or accept dowry.
Oh, so it's illegal to demand a dowry.
Yes.
But yet, in the U.S., I don't offer dowry, but
You do provide something.
I was going to say, I haven't stopped paying for my daughters even. It always seems that there's something.
Yeah, right.
You know, last weekend was the uniform for my grandson to play soccer.
Ah,
You know, the week before that, I mean, but at my age, what am I saving it for?
yeah.
You know, if I'm not saving the money for them, then what am I going to do? Keep it and take it with me?
But in India, the dowry can be very hefty.
Really?
Oh, yes. The kilograms of jewelry,
Kilograms?
depending on the status of the family, a car, refrigerator, fully equipped kitchen.
Who pays for the Indian wedding? That's scary.
It is 2 weddings, actually. Not
Two?
like here. A wedding celebration on the bride's side and another on the groom's side.
Yeah, but they're talking, if I understand right, you're talking about days of wedding.
Yes, yes. If
And
you
like-
are rich.
Okay.
If you
Because
are
I was
rich.
going to say, I saw this thing with 800 people invited to the wedding. I'm dying. I mean, my daughter's wedding was $96,000 and there was only 300 people.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there saying, oh my God, if this was 3,000, I'd have to mortgage my life.
Yeah.
You know? How do they
Yeah,
invite so many people? How do you know so many people?
Relatives, grandkids, everybody comes. And in the village, if it is in a village, all the people whom they know. So it can be a crowd.
Does the groom still ride an elephant, or is that only for rich people? No more?
Not elephants.
That's-
Not elephant, no horse.
No horse?
No. That
Ah.
is only in the north. See, Kerala wedding is, I'm talking about the Christian wedding in Kerala. No, we don't do that. We just, it is very, very close to the weddings here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is more westernized.
Because when I saw the thing with Mary's wedding, okay, I got to look this up. And I'm looking back, and they're saying historically, you know, the groom came in on an elephant, and then it became a horse because it was easier to deal with and cheaper.
Yes.
One question I didn't understand. Vedlayer, the guy that became the Velai. If I don't have any money as a town, why would I hire him to look over me?
His job is only to light.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's looking over me and says, okay, it's dark. I like the street light.
And in the morning, extinguish it. That's all his job is.
Okay.
That's all the job.
And I have to hire somebody to do that?
Yes. Because he's the first and only employee of the panchayat.
I couldn't understand. Of all the things, but in a way it showed me how important that street light was.
Exactly. There is a whole chapter written on the how the streetlight came into existence.
And its evolution along the way.
Right.
You mentioned in the beginning that the town went through, I can't remember if it was cataclysmic or huge changes throughout the book. And it was funny because I saw changes all throughout each chapter.
Right.
But I walked away saying, I don't think the town changed much.
Yeah.
The heart of the town. You know, when I think of when I grew up in Milford, Milford hasn't changed much in 60 years that I've been
Right.
here because the people still have the same heart and soul. Is that your understanding also?
I won't say it is catastrophical changes. I think the Dr. Hartley wrote thinking that it is catastrophical changes in terms of maybe how the novel started and how it ended. There are changes gradually taking place. That's what he meant. And the 14th chapter, are you talking about that? Or
Yes.
you are. And what do you think about that?
I had a hard time because I looked at it both ways. But rather than spoil the book for the people, let's leave that one as an open question.
Actually, I leave it to the reader to make what it is being described. And I close the book like a modern painting.
Right.
And it is up to you, and it's up to someone else.
To do the final interpretation.
How do you look at it?
Well,
And
I found it fascinating. I'm glad that Adelaide accepted it and published it. I'm looking forward to the next one. And as always, we'll show you the cover of the book as we come to the end. It's been an enjoyable read, and I don't read that much anymore. But this one was fun. Why don't you sign off and tell us the title of the book and your name?
Okay. My name is Thomas Palayor, and the title of my book is A Village Under the Streetlight. And it is available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookstores worldwide, and of course, all over the United States.
Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for introducing the book to me. It was an easy read. It was one of those books that you could just sit back and enjoy. So thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to talk about my book and having a wonderful conversation with you. And I especially enjoyed your reference to the Milford town, how it is comparable to Manur. That is a very interesting comparison. Thank you.
And to our 6 loyal viewers, as always, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better day than today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Al.
Not too long since I've been home, been running all my life just